And get this meeting started at 7:06. If you would like to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of minutes at the regular meeting on August 8th, 2023 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, you have a motion.
Mr. Buster, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. King. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. We'll move on to our general functions, staff, student, and community recognitions. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. Normally, I would say we have a special presentation to the board this evening that we'll be giving to you, but I think you participated in the first part of that. I'd like to spend a little bit of time with you explaining what you experienced earlier with the Dream Team. So with that, ask Mr. Aaron Schmidt, Ms. Michelle Wood, and I believe there's special guest, Mr. Rob Davis.
President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board, we are very excited to be here tonight. I just got to start. I get a little emotional with this. How cool is it to work in a place where you get to do stuff like this, right? I was thinking of that when I was driving here. I get to work with two of the people I really enjoy with Rob and Michelle on projects like this beautiful Dream Stream that you got to walk through tonight. And it's hard not to just be excited to work in a place where you get the flexibility, freedom, and support to do really cool things for kids. So before we get into anything else, just I hope you get a lot of thank yous tonight. Thank you all for giving us the leash, the long leash to do projects like this. It's very much appreciated, and I hope we don't let you down with them. We're each going to talk a little bit. You'll have to get through it. It's worth it. Today, we're going to tell you a story about working together to build opportunities for others. In Vail, where education is community effort, it's not just a tagline, but it's a way of life in our district. And I hope that the story that you hear today really exudes that in every way, shape, and form. But this story starts with a really bad purchase, right? And in 2019, my father-in-law bought this beautiful used Airstream from Alabama. It was beautiful in the pictures. And he was an eBayer and he did it. And it got to his house. And I want you to know, like, we got in that thing for the first time after it had broken down on the way from Alabama. And he was like, I'm going to rip this thing out and I'm going to make this into a beautiful Airstream. And my wife and I are going to go up to Portland and back in this thing. It's going to be wonderful. And after a few short weeks of ripping things out, he came back to me and said, I think I'm going to go a different direction. It was an awful lot of work for him. And we'll show you some pretty sweet pictures here, I think. If I can get this to work. I think we're totally frozen. There we go. I just went all the way to the end of the thing.
You did.
Oh, God. There we go.
We'll close our eyes.
Don't hit too many buttons. So if you just want to give a peek, it's a really good before picture. So this is about the state where it is after everything was ripped out. But I will tell you, I did the one kind thing of getting in there, and I did sweep out some of our pack rat friends and the little gifts that they left. Because this was sitting in a lot of different places for a while. And I only show you this picture because it's really, we all have humble beginnings, and so did the Airstream. And so it did take a lot of guts for Michelle and for Rob to want to work on this thing with us. The one thing my father-in-law really wanted to do, though, is he really wanted to make his moment, make his peace with this rather than just try to sell it. He really wanted to give it back to the school district and kind of let us choose what fun thing we could do with it. And he said, at the end of the day, if you have to just sell it, just take a little money, donate it into one of the programs. But if you can do something really special with it, I really want you to try to do something like that. So we took it, and I'm going to tell you, we sat in this thing for a while. Jeff Parks was going to kick me out of Andromeda. I had this hanging out in the back. I think it spent time at Cienega at one point. It's been around. Niemer Hassey had it for a little bit. And it took a conversation that I had at one of our leadership retreats. John, this morning I were talking, and one of the things we always talk about is you go to the leadership retreat, and probably half the good you get comes out of the great leadership trainings that we get and the activities we go through. But half of it comes from just sitting around a campfire and talking to people you don't normally talk to. And I've talked to Michelle Wood a million times, but we never really just sat down and kind of talked about projects and brainstormed. And she came up to me and she said, man, Aaron, you know what I wish I had? I just wish we had like a mobile trailer type thing that we could put our kids in and do really cool stuff in and just take them all around and sell stuff out of. And I was just thinking, man, did you pick the right guy to talk to tonight? And I knew in that moment it was the right thing to do. And just to give you a little background, you're going to hear about passion from all three of us. My passion for this project comes from my son. My son has cognitive delays. He has physical delays. And from the parent of a student with severe special needs, or just any parent, but from my shoes, to think that he could go to a place where he could grasp on and learn some different skills, and one day have that dream of either independence or semi-independence in some capacity, that means the world to me. So to have a project like this where we could build that opportunity for others, where others can get in this, they can practice some skills, and they can get out into the community. It was a project I knew and Michelle knew that we couldn't pass up. So one of the things that we did talk about, and I want to kind of give you just a few overviews of what we hope to get out of it. I was talking to Michelle today, and one of the phrases that we came to is we wanted to kind of think of it as, we've worked hard to provide inclusive schools in Vail, and now we want to work towards developing an inclusive community. So one of the structures and pieces we want to put in place with this Airstream is to get it out of our schools, to get it out of kind of just those normal places there where everyone kind of knows everyone, and just to build a little uncomfortableness in some of the kids, some of the places we go to. So one of the things we hoped you would do is you'd just be driving down Houghton one day and it's sitting at Ace Hardware with a TSW crew working in it and selling some great stuff. Michelle's going to get more in depth in this, but that's the kind of vision that we had, was to really just not have any limits for the students that we wanted to have working within it. The other piece that we had, and we'll go through some pictures here in a second, that we really were all committed to, is we didn't want to, I don't want to say we were not so thoughtful with our money choices, but I also knew that we really wanted to make sure that when a person walked up to this, when a customer in the community walked up to this, that all they saw when they walked up was one of the coolest things they'd ever seen, and that they carried that image with them when they met the individuals that were selling items and working that day within there. And when I looked at it today, I feel like we hit the spot. That was how I perceived it, and I sure hope our community does too. Just a few fun pictures through the process of creating it. We had to cold call like 12 different places to see who would even work on an Airstream and do these types of projects. We found a great partner with a company called Silverstream up in Phoenix, Arizona, which means someone had to get this thing up there. And credit to the owner. He heard about our story. He loved what we were doing with it. And when we were having some issues with the transportation of it, he just got in his truck one day and drove down and picked it up himself. It was just a really great partner for it. And he shared the vision we had for trying to support others. That door that we put in front was one of the most single expensive parts of it, but it's really nice to be able to have that big view in, but also to make sure that the student working, the parapros working could all be in that window together, interacting with our customers. Of course, we had to make sure that the inside was very wide and big so that lots of kids could be in there, kids with mobility issues, kids who have parapros with them. Had to make sure there's a nice little chair and bench in the corner, because if you're working on a hot Airstream all day, sometimes you got to have a sit. And of course, we wanted to make sure that it had a really good, beautiful front-facing piece. So credit to Cirrus Visual for working with us to create that design. It's a really beautiful design, and we think it really embodies a lot of the pieces of Vail, but it's also really unique for what this project is. So to talk more about some of the partners that we had, I'm going to introduce our partner in crime, Rob Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I'm obviously here representing the community. Says where education is a community effort, and that's really kind of just the part I wanted to contribute to tonight, is just to say thank you for your trust and allowing us to be a part of this. This was a collaborative effort, as you can see there, between the CTE program, the SPED program, and TSW, as well as our church, Living Branch Church. We have a Christmas giving campaign that we do every year. 100% of what comes in goes back out into the community. And through a series of conversations, somehow we got grouped into this. And it was a beautiful thing. Similar to Aaron, I have a really personal interest in this too. Our daughter Hadley, my wife Kendra's here tonight. There's a pretty good possibility that she may benefit from being able to be a part of the Dream Stream sometime down the road. But just to kind of give you an overview of how this partnership came together, I think Aaron and Michelle started to have some conversations separately, and then I started having conversations separately with Michelle and separately with Aaron. And then one day I was like, we need to get in the same room and just kind of see where this goes. And so it was about October of last year where we had our first ever meeting. Quickly after that, James joined us. We had a series of another 5 or 6 meetings. along the way, we formed a committee, who I'm hoping to introduce some of them who are here tonight. We had a committee meeting in October and another one in April. March 29th, the Silver Travelers came down and picked up the Airstream, took it to Phoenix, and the pessimist in me thought that might be the last time we ever see that thing. It's just, if you've seen Dumb and Dumber and the shaggin' wagon going down the road, you just don't know, right? So anyhow, but Michelle and Aaron are optimists, so they're like, oh, it's going to be great. And sure enough, August 3rd, it rolled back into Vail, and it's been sitting in this parking lot ever since. And very similar to what Aaron shared, I just have a tremendous sense of pride. I felt like our part as a church, as an organization, was fairly easy. We put a little bit of funding into it, and then just a few ideas along the way, but so many others did a lot of heavy lifting. We had a committee of some incredible people. I won't read all their names, but I will ask if any of them are here. Would you stand? Your names are on the board, so we know if you're here. We can just recognize these people. Yeah. It's been such a joy to work and partner together with them. And then I'm excited because my part's kind of just beginning. I'm working with Mark Tate and Sarah Caruth. We are the community engagement team. So now we're going to be in the community identifying potential partnerships where the Dream Stream can roll up and serve our community. So I'm gonna turn it over to Michelle.
Thank you. So when we began thinking about this, we really sat down and thought about what do we want to accomplish with this? And one of the big things that we thought about was making sure we created something that would serve the students and not that the students would serve. Teaching students workplace skills is just so incredibly important to us and something that we really take pride in Vail. And we wanted just to create a unique opportunity for them to practice these skills. Many of our students in Vail, they start when they're 3 years old with us in special education, and sometimes they stay with us until they're 22. One of the things we also really talked about was sometimes those preschool, elementary, middle school teachers, they don't get to see kind of the end product. We have some high schoolers here today and see the growth and independence that those students have reached. So one of the first things we want to do is take the Dream Stream back to some of those schools, let them see their former teachers and let the teachers see how much these students have grown and the skills that they've accomplished. We also want to make sure that these students are now able to serve as role models for our younger students that are still in our elementary and middle schools too. Something that we really also believe in is that community partnership. Our transition from school to work program helps to build those incredible skills. So we make sure students are ready to leave us and become an important valued member in Vail and a member of that community. But oftentimes our community doesn't always get to see TSW. So this will be another way to kind of put TSW out in front of everybody and really hold up what our students do and what we're trying to accomplish in that area. Another goal that we had was making sure that we keep that connection. Aaron and I and Rob, we've got to work very closely, but special ed and CTE have really become connected through this project. So we're looking for other ways that we can continue that. And one thing that we've done is we've connected with Mr. Hall. He teaches the CTE marketing class over at Seneca High School, and his students are now they've started by creating the Dream Stream Instagram account. So they're going to be in charge of kind of managing that and making sure that all the events we're at are publicized and that the community knows about that, but also hopefully taking some of the inventory and really thinking about what kind of products can we sell off of the Dream Stream and really partnering in that direction. Our ultimate goal is to hope that one of his marketing students someday would do their internship as kind of the program manager for the Dream Stream. So we're really looking to make those connections and keep them strong between our departments and between our students as well. And like Aaron said, we just kind of want to thank you for it's pretty great that we get to work in a place that lets us have this really crazy out of the box idea and just kind of run with it and make it happen. I know we all feel incredibly thankful to work here, to volunteer here in a district that really supports that. So we really do appreciate all your support. I do want to recognize the students that came to work the first time ever on the Dream Stream. So if you don't mind, I'll call them up.
Please.
Okay. We have Isabel Steele, if you want to come on up. We have Mr. TJ Turner. Come on up, TJ. And then Isaiah Nelson's extra special. He actually left us last year. He graduated and moved on, but he was on our planning committee and then wanted to make sure he came back for this event tonight. So Isaiah will come in.
Miss Wood, we also have certificates. We wanted to honor these students tonight. Can they?
Absolutely. Do you guys want to come up and get your certificate? Maybe take a picture? Nope.
Isaiah? Okay. Congratulations. Thank you.
Want to come around front?
Yes. And TJ, great job. Congratulations.
We're gonna come around front and take a picture with you guys.
Would that be okay?
Oh, I did. You're still up there. You're here, man.
One more, TJ.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you all, and thank you to the parents, especially for bringing your children or your young adults or adults here tonight as well. This is such an amazing example of what partnership looks like in its best form. As you were presenting, many of you know I was our first special education director in the Vail School District, and I was the special ed director when we opened Cienega High School. And the idea of transition from high school, we were a K-8 school district, and we're like, what the heck do we do? How do we even? I mean, couldn't even begin to conceptualize it. And one special education teacher that we had at Cienega at the time said, "Can you just get me a van? I just need a van." And it from that incredibly humble beginning to this. And I love the words of not creating an inclusive school district, but moving to an inclusive community. That's where we're moving. And this is just an incredible example of that. So thank you all.
Yes.
So
Thank you. So normally we don't kind of open it up for comments during this time, but we can break protocol
Yep.
today and just see if board members have any comments to share today.
I just like to say absolutely outstanding,
Mhm.
from the smiles to the concept, especially incorporating business into that and teaching young people across the spectrum what it is to be entrepreneurs. Spot on.
I just want to say thanks for letting us be the ones tonight to be here with you as you start this journey, and just congratulations. And we're just so excited and thrilled to see where it takes you guys, and for us to just be watching from the sideline. We'll be supporting and we'll come, I'm excited about that. So congratulations. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Keith.
I just wanted to say, when Aaron and I talked about this, it seems like 2 years ago now. It was still a concept at the time, and he made mention of it, and I started making like some phone calls to try and see what we could do, and then I never heard back on what was going on, and then boom, I see the trailer out in the parking lot. I'm like, what's going on? And then tonight, it was just amazing to see how everything came full circle. So, thank you
Truth
guys.
be told, Mr. Schmidt might have come to me one day and he said, "So there may be a slightly rat infested Airstream that's parked behind one of our schools. It could be a cool project, but I want you to know that it's there." And it's my father-in-law's. I'm like, "Oh, geez, Aaron." It's like, we didn't really say a whole lot to anybody for a good 3 or 4 months. We had the cool idea, and then we said, "Hey, we've got this Airstream we're doing this thing with." So anyways, it's pretty incredible.
It is really incredible. I think it's easy to provide the space and support when we have dreamers like you guys on the team. So thank you. I just, how do you even come up with this, So thank you.
And I will close with this. We oftentimes students who need services through special education, we feel that the sentiment is that we're being gracious and giving to those who need, when in fact it is completely turned over. If you look at this through the lens of what this opportunity has done today to bring people together, and the strength of those who we have the blessing of working with in special education to our community, I just look out here and see the connections of people that would not have happened if it weren't for people in our community who needed, who we serve through special education, and the gift that they have given us and the gift that has tied so many people in the audience today together. So I just want to make that as a general statement and what that looks like. What does it mean to have an inclusive community? That's what it looks like to have an inclusive community.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. You're also welcome to scoot out if you'd like. Our meetings are very riveting, but we understand.
Sometimes.
That's true. Is that,
We actually have, thank you for a little longer leeway with a special announcement. We do have a few other staff, student, and community recognitions. First up, Mr. Barger, followed by Mrs. Bates.
Okay.
Jeez.
I'm kind of nervous.
Thank you.
Kind of nervous.
Thank you, Mr. Kruth. President Pratt, members of the board. I have a couple of recognitions. I'd like to start by recognizing our PBIS coordinator. That's a position we were able to move some people around and keep an employee that's been on our team for a number of years who had a baby and was trying to figure out how to work part-time. And so it's worked out, and just putting Emily Sapala in that position has made a world of difference on our campus. The tone has really changed, and she's doing some really good stuff. So I want to recognize her. Also want to recognize that this is the first time that we've ever started a school year with a behavior specialist. We've never had that position until last year at our school. And last year we didn't hire someone until the start of the second quarter. So having someone in place at the first week as behaviors begin to, come to the surface and start working immediately to, get parents involved and come up with plans to create incentives for kids just makes a big difference. So I want to recognize Melissa Hubley for that position. I also want to recognize a second-year teacher with us. Shay Van Meter is our music teacher. And so she is the only teacher in the district, I believe, who teaches K-12 on a daily basis. But she is also the first person to start a mariachi program in the Vail School District. We have kicked off a mariachi program. And so that is just exciting to see. And the energy around that is going really well. And so after 1 year here, she's like, hey, let's try something different. I'm like, love it. Let's do it. So we have that. And then finally, I'd like to recognize Trisha Kaproff, who will be retiring at the end of this quarter. She's been our office manager since before I became principal back in 2006. So she's held down the fort for a long time, and she'll be riding off into the sunset at the end of this quarter. So if any of you are around campus, she'll be there for another few weeks and then transitioning into retired life. So I just want to recognize her for her dedication and service to our school for a long, long time. And then I want to share a story. All right. So I'm going to share an email that I received in July. So we, as you know, we've been doing the Happiness Advantage. We've read that book. We've had the author come speak to us. And so there are things in life where, you just get hit, and, often many of us go home and our spouses will say, what was the best part of your day? Didn't have to wait for that question. I came through the door with this. So this is an email I received. Dear Mr. Barger, I hope this, and I'm going to change the names of the guilty for the sake of the reading. I'll use Mickey and Minnie for Miss Peters because she likes the big rat in Disneyland. Mr. Barger, I hope this email finds you in good health and high spirits. My name is Mickey, and I'm writing this email regarding my girlfriend, Minnie. We both had the honor of graduating from Vail Academy in high school. We've held our time at Vail close to our hearts as it has played an instrumental role in shaping our lives and fostering our personal growth. I'm reaching out to you with a request that holds immense sentimental value for both of us. As Minnie and I embark on the next chapter of our lives together, I would like to seize this opportunity to propose to her in the place that witnessed our formative years and brought us together. The memories we forged at Vail are irreplaceable, and I believe there couldn't be a more fitting location to celebrate our commitment and love for each other. Therefore, I humbly request your permission to return to Vail on Saturday, July 22nd, between 3 and 6 p.m. for this special occasion. I understand the importance of ensuring the school activities continue smoothly, and I assure that I will take every precaution to minimize any disruptions. It's a Saturday afternoon, right? We deeply respect the values and traditions of Vail and will ensure that our events align with the school standards and requirements. If there are any specific guidelines or conditions we need to adhere to during this visit, please let me know. Thank you for considering our request. We truly hope that you can help us to create an unforgettable moment on July 22nd. Should you require any additional information or have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So of course I said no, because it was a Saturday. Actually, he did have to reschedule because he was trying to make it so that their families could be with them for this event, right? So the proposal actually occurred on Thursday, August 10th. And so now you can flip over the paper I gave you. Oh, wow. So she did, of course, say yes. And I will no longer protect their names, but the young lady is now a second grade teacher at Mesquite. She just graduated college after 4 years and she came back to teach. So Jasmine Benjamin is one of our own staff members, and it's just a great story. And the point is, you never know what's going to happen with kids on your campus. So thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Bates. Yeah. Or Mr. Breen, followed by Mr. Breen.
Thanks a lot, guys, for setting me up for Superintendent Kruth and members of the board. I'm here with my lousy recognition. I have no pictures and no presentation and no cookies. I have nothing. Maybe next time I'll come better prepared. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to brag on a couple of my staff members. I appreciate it. I want to first recognize our long-term sub, Cassie Williams. She is a Vail parent and was a teacher previously and just wanted to kind of get back into the swing of, hey, what is this teacher thing after raising her babies for a little while? And it's really hard to be a long-term sub. And it's really, really hard to be a long-term sub at the very start of the school year. And she has just knocked it out of the park, continuously going above and beyond, establishing routines, procedures, and a well-oiled, well-managed classroom, not to mention an ELP co-taught classroom. So she's just done a really, really great job. Just want to recognize her efforts in covering that position. The teacher who she's covering for is on maternity leave and it's coming to a near end. And so I found her in my office just this last morning and she said, can you please find a way to just please keep me? I'm like, okay, I'll do my best. The sub coordinators are going to hurt me, but I'll try to find you something. So we're working on trying to keep her on campus. Next recognition is for Diane Wiltshire. She's our workroom paraprofessional. Diane has been in the district for a really, really long time. She is incredibly efficient and hardworking, and she's always looking for ways to make things easier for each member of our team. The other day I walked by her in the hallway. I'm like, Diane, what are you up to? And she's like, I'm just drumming up work, right? She just wants to be supportive, wants to be helpful, wants to be out there supporting people in any way that she can. Our workroom sits in the heart of our campus, and Diane absolutely is a person who lends an ear and is a great friend to anybody who stops through that space. So just want to recognize her heart. Thirdly, I want to recognize Missy Dawkin and Kathy Robinson. You guys supported this transition for our kindergarten specialists to move into the full-time kinder teacher role. And Missy and Kathy have just done a fantastic job of starting school and running their first ever classrooms as certified teachers. They're killing it and doing a fantastic job. And then lastly, I want to recognize our specialist team, Jody White, Jennifer Bliss, Ashley Sutton, Joy Gainey, and Lorena Sutton. They have this incredibly cohesive vision for supporting learning happening in our classrooms, but also providing this amazing enrichment opportunities and just kind of rounding out students' experience at Cottonwood through really cool, enriching ways through specials. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Bates. Mr. Breen, followed by Mrs. Brockman.
President Pratt, Superintendent Caruth, members of the governing board.
I was concerned for Mr. Barger having to follow the Dream Machine, but you did a very nice job. And then I was further concerned for Mrs. Bates. Thank you for being your awesome normal self. You did great as well. And I'm not quite as nervous now. Anyways, great recognitions tonight. I'd like to recognize a few teams and some individuals. First, I'd like to recognize some folks from our student data team. You know, we have a short summer in Vail, and it's just a really busy time for that team as they work with the schools to roll students into the new school year, build out bell schedules, student schedules, all those things. Last year, we solicited feedback from our leaders at our schools to see how we could refine and optimize that process, including opening our returning student registration portal a couple weeks early. And as long as I can remember, I think this was the smoothest and quickest rollover transition we've had. They pulled all this off while being down a whole position since Louise Miles retired this summer. So myself and the student data team are working hard to getting close to filling that vacancy, but they've just been doing a really great job this summer, especially being a position down. So I'd like to recognize Norm Purdy, Esther Lubin, Veronica Preciado, Don Ball, and Robin Klinger for making this smooth transition happen while providing great customer service to all our customers at the schools. Additionally, I'd like to send an extra recognition to Norm Purdy and Esther Lubin for their work with our outreach program. You may not know this, but Norm leads our outreach program, which serves 72 other school districts. So similar to our BT program, where these school districts pay us and partner with us to get our state reporting expertise, which really just translates to all the funding the school district receives. So it's money well spent for them. But they've been working extra hard this summer, helping all of those school districts with their transitions as well. I'd like to recognize some ed tech folks. We're really excited. As you know, I know Mr. Caruth shared some of this information with you for the first time with support from Mrs. Penn and her leadership on the curriculum side of the house. Vail is dedicating one of our limited half days that we have throughout the year just for ed tech specific professional development sessions. This will be happening at tomorrow's half day at 3 of our schools, Esmond Station, Desert Sky, and Cienega, with sessions specific to each of those grade bands. So I'd like to recognize Emily Marshall for her leadership in this effort and the ed tech leadership team that she leads, which also includes Suzanne Brazel, Rita Boyd, Aaron Raybuck, Elaine Murphy, and Amanda Calkins. This group has collaborated to plan and pull off this event. Knock on wood, it hasn't happened yet, but I think it's going to go really well tomorrow. I'd also like to recognize those who have helped with the specific support at the 3 schools: Daniel Hughes, Rebecca Marsh, Stacy Cousins, Bob Koenig, Kim Middleton, Crystal Fwenning, Jen Slatterly, and Lainey Kitzmiller. Finally, I'd like to recognize all the teachers, STCs, and SATs that are doing the presentations tomorrow by our staff, for our staff. They're too numerous to mention here, but I'll make sure I include them in the written minutes. All in all, it's about 45 different PD sections that are going to be happening tomorrow. So that's just really exciting to see how that's going to turn out. I'd like to recognize our Director of Facilities, Jerry Wood, specifically for working so hard to remodel our technology area in the district office. This was a huge project as part of that building wasn't in great shape and had some interesting furry characters back there. But he worked really closely with myself and our team to make sure we got what we needed. And our team's just so excited to all be together for the first time. And the team just feels really valued by this effort. Relatedly, I just enjoy working with Jerry on the various other projects in terms of my IT involvement in his projects. It just truly feels like we're both on the same team and working together to achieve what's best for the district. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize our amazing executive assistant to the technology department, Janessa Weber. Hiring Janessa just over 2 years ago when I took on the CT role may have been the best decision I've made, and I've been struggling to top that decision since then. She does so much work for our department and in turn for our district. Much of this work, just happens in the background and rarely gets recognized. Her biggest challenge is probably keeping me in line, but she does an amazing job also managing our complicated budget and other logistical needs for our team. And most importantly, her kind demeanor adds so much to the culture of our team. So we appreciate her. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mrs. Brockman, followed by Mr. Campos.
Hi, good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Caruth, and members of the board. I want to recognize the entire staff at VIP. They are a remarkable group of people who serve our families and community with their hearts. The work they do is commendable, and the connections they make with our students and families is truly special. VIP had a fantastic start to the school year, and it is because of their efforts and dedication. VIP also has a new office manager this year, and I would like to thank some of the individuals who have helped with this new transition. Dawn Ball, Tori Gamble, and Rhonda Newkirk have worked alongside Patty Gallimore to help train and answer the many questions that arise with the start of a new school year. Their knowledge, skillfulness, patience, and encouragement towards our new office manager is greatly appreciated. And we really are truly lucky to have these individuals supporting us here in Vail. Lastly, I want to thank and recognize Deborah Freeman from the Transportation Department. Deborah's hard work and collaboration with VIP is truly valued. It is evident just how much she cares about our littles at VIP. She goes above and beyond to ensure that everything is set in place for our families, to make sure everything runs smoothly, getting our youngest students in Vail to and from school safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Campos.
Good evening, President Pratt, Superintendent Mr. Cruth, and members of the governing board. Before I get started with my recognition, I want to piggyback off Mrs. Brockman's right there. My son goes to VIP at Cienega, and he absolutely loves it. I love dropping him off, love the feel that he gets. He's at the point now, he's in pre-K, where he's like, all right, Dad, I'm cool. I'm like, don't give me one more hug, or no, are you sure? So it's just great. So kudos to your program. He's been in it for 2 years now and just absolutely loves it. So the real battle will be next year. Is it going to go to dad's school, or my wife works at Ocotillo Ridge, going to go to mom's school? So we have the constant tug of war going on in our house right now. So at Acacia, I would love to recognize our SPED department, our total SPED team, from our certified staff to our classified staff. We have had an influx of some SPED kids, and man, they are knocking out of the park. We're learning new kids, trying new things. We've hired some new paras, but it goes really back to doing what's best for kids and getting our kids into the classroom and the supports that they need. So I love seeing kind of the end results of the project that we saw tonight from the Dream Stream, and knowing where our students are starting from and where they get to end up is really just encouraging to me and to our staff. I would also like to recognize our counselor, Nikki Mendoza. She is a lifeline to me. I mean, I pick her brain 100 times a day. She has more groups than I can count and sees more kids than I can count, but also reaches out to our families and supports our families as well. So not only with our students, but also our community. So I would like to thank all of them. I'm going to include in the board minutes all of our SPED team's names and their notes too, because I want them to be recognized that way. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Campos. I have one other district-wide recognition. We received a letter late last week from the Government Finance Officers Association, recognizing the Vail School District for our ability to receive their Certificate of Achievement of Excellence for Finance Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and financial reporting, and it is a attainment that represents a significant accomplishment by a government organization and its management in regards to its fiscal management. So huge kudos to our business office for upholding those standards and taking good care and stewards of our public tax dollars. Thank you for a little extra time this evening for our staff, student, and community recognitions, but that's all we have tonight.
Thank you. That was well worth our time. Thank you. We'll move on to call to the public. This time the board will hear from members of the public who wishes to address the board on items not on tonight's agenda. Tonight I have one request to speak from Mark Tate. As he's coming up, I know he knows the drill. We just ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes, and in accordance with open meeting law, we may not respond, comment, or ask questions of speakers regarding issues not on tonight's agenda. Mr. Tate.
Thank you, President Pratt, Superintendent Cruth, members of the board. I'd like to continue the conversation tonight, the recognition of the motto of where education is a community effort, except the fact that it's not really a motto, it's a lifestyle within the Vail School District. I appreciate that. But for years, the Rincon Optimists have been providing shoes, not only for the Vail School District, but for TUSD, AMPI, and several other school districts. So I wanted to recognize this past Saturday, Really started at the end of last school year. Jill Wells works for Heather Sow in the Community Connections and Student Support Department. Start talking to student service coordinators and saying, identify the students in your school that could use a new pair of shoes come the start of the new school year. And so they started that in the school year and then started this year, started paying attention. We put a list together of 100 students that would receive a new pair of shoes. Student service coordinators had the opportunity to fill it out with minimum number of names. And then as the openings were still there, we were able to fill those lists. Actually to a list of 119, although Rincon Optimus had asked for 100. We had a list of 119 and 104 of those students showed up. So the Rincon Optimus, again, paid for those shoes. I think it's to be recognized. Dr. Shaw, a teacher at Rincon Vista, is a member of the Optimist Club. It does a number of excellent things in the district with the Rincon Optimist. They even have a group of students at Rincon Vista that belong to the junior Rincon Optimist. And they were there to help the families to pick out shoes. I think as we were talking about reactions and looks on people's faces, to see the parents come to the store and say, what's the limit? And instead of saying, well, whatever you can find back in the clearance that no one else wants, the optimists say, if you find a pair of shoes in the store, it's yours. And this was at the Skechers store on Broadway and Kolb. So kudos to Rincon Optimist, to Mike Adams, the general manager of Skechers. And again, here's where that community effort, right, comes together, where businesses, the school district, nonprofits all come together just to help those that need a new pair of shoes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. The next item is acknowledgement of public requests to speak. At this time, I do not have any requests from the public to speak. So we will move on to our next section, to superintendent's report. Mr. Cruz.
No report this evening. I think we've reported plenty already.
Sounds great. Thank you. Next is our board reports. We'll move on to the board reports. Do any board members have a report at this time? No. I do have a quick one. I attended the religious leaders meeting this last week under the direction of Heather Stow. She just does such a great job. It's definitely a bucket filler meeting, and I just appreciate that partnership there. I also want to recognize Karen Hall, an 8th grade teacher at Corona Foothills Middle School. She organized a meeting with, actually a presentation with Juan Siscamani, and it was really amazing seeing him speak to these kids, these 8th graders that you would think 8th graders don't care about, much in government or politics, but these kids were really focused and they were listening to every word he said. And then afterwards, these kids, I don't even know where they got them. They just had these little slips of paper that they were asking him for his autograph. And you would have thought that they were saying, talking to a NFL player. I mean, this one kid was like holding it up and another kid, he was going like this with his hand and he said, he shook my hand. He said, I'm never going to wash that hand again. So anyways, it was just really amazing to see the impact that he had and the words that he had on these kids. And so I know how busy he is. So I appreciate him coming, but especially to Miss Hall for instilling that, giving that experience and instilling that passion for government for her students. Really quick, just wanted to recognize Margaret Stewart. I got a text from a friend last week, and it just was a picture of Miss Stewart getting off of a bus. And she said, well, that's something like to the effect of that's leadership. And I mentioned it to Miss Stewart when we were at Corona Foothills, and she said, well, of course, those kids were, messing around on the bus or whatever. And she said, of course I was there. She rode the bus and rode the stop because, the kids were messing around. And I just thought, I know what's on her plate. And so she just does an amazing job. Parents love her and just appreciate her. It was a fun text to get. And then just very, very last, just recognizing Rayleigh May, with the Vail Early College program. They're starting their classes tomorrow. Thursday, sorry. I've got one son who's really excited about his classes starting. And so they've done a really great job with their boot camp, preparing these kids for the start of their college classes. We will move on to the consent agenda. Sorry. All items listed below are consent matters and will be considered by one motion at this time. There'll be no discussion of consent items. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda by request. All items not accepted and approved as part of the consent agenda will be considered individually. Do any board members wish to pull an item? Okay, Mr. Cruz?
Thank you, President Pratt, and members of the board. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, you have a motion.
Mr. Buster
I'll second.
and Ms. Anderson, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on now to old business. Our first item is the ASBA policy advisories and action item. Mr. Cruz?
Thank you, President Pratt, and members of the board. This is an item that was studied at the last board meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have or clarifications regarding those policies. I'll go ahead and make the recommendation, move from there. So it's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board, approve the revisions in the policy advisories for policies IGA, IGD, IJJ, and JLCD as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. King,
Seconded.
Mr. Buster, comments or questions? I know that we talked about this last time, studied it last time. No comments or questions. If there's none, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is special education medical assistant reclassification, also an action item. Mr. Cruz?
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. We studied this item and the next item as well at the last board meeting. Mr. Carney's here to present a quick overview, and I'll make the recommendation.
Bless you. Thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board. Yeah, just we have two items on the agenda as we look to expand what we're doing in health services. We previously brought these to you. For both items, the idea being that as we've increased enrollment across the district, we haven't necessarily kept up with health services. Today, we have more than 6,000 students with chronic health issues. In addition to that, we have a huge increased number of type 1 diabetes. So we just require some extra services with our health services. And so the first position we're bringing to you is a position that's already currently in place. It's a special education medical assistant. We're seeking to change not only the title to school health specialist, but also we've expanded the job description so that we can create some more autonomy within the position, but also some generalized specialization. And so with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Cruz to bring the recommendation forward.
So I'll make the recommendation the Vail School District Governing Board approve the updates to the special education medical assistant job description and title as presented.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion.
I'll motion.
Ms. Anderson,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Buster. Comments or questions? I know, again, on this, like the previous item, we did talk about this last time. So if there's no comments or questions, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you. I'm assuming you're staying here for the next one,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. New student health nurse position, also an action item. Mr. Cruz?
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. Same protocol as last time. Mr. Carney will give us a quick summary and I'll read the recommendation, Mr. Carney.
Yes, thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board. Again, as we look to see those increased numbers and the need for more healthcare services, we're looking to expand the leadership, if you will, across the district with regard to health services. And so we're bringing before the board a recommendation for a new position, which is a student health nurse coming in at level 23, working at 215 days. We think that will be a nice addition to as we start to look into visioning mode and also how we can better provide training and safety across the district for our not only our health aides, but more specifically for our students.
And with that, I'll make the recommendation. The Vail School District Governing Board approve the student health nurse job description and position as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. King? How about Mr.
Second.
Buster, second? Comments or questions? No, I just want to say thank you. I know as we're getting bigger, it's a good opportunity for us to kind of look at our practices and the positions that we have. So I want to say thank you to you and the district nurse as well to working together to bring these positions forward. Thank you. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on to new business. The first item is staffing and substitute coverage update. It's an inform item, Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. We were doing an update meeting a week or so ago and was talking to Mrs. Dabney about where we are with our staffing efforts. Also remembering that little less than 2 years ago, in the fall of 2021, we asked our leadership team, what are the things that are barriers to success in the classroom? And obviously we understand the context of 2021, but almost to a person, they said staffing. What we're having to deal with on a daily basis. We're just so hindered because of the needs at staffing levels, constant hiring, constant trying to cover classrooms. So we just thought we would do an update on where we are in that process. And so Mrs. Dabney, why don't you take it away from there?
Yes, thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, and members of the board. So I have some really good news to share. And I'm a little nervous to even put this out there because it's such good news and I don't want to jinx anything. I feel like a coach that needs like their lucky socks, so, but it's great news. So just some information of where we're at with staffing and how things look today. So every week we put out a vacancy list of our current vacancies. So this is our last vacancy list. It's 1 page. Which is a big deal for us because for the last 2-3 years, we've been at 2 pages, at 3 pages. And when you see the amount of openings that we had, it was, discouraging. And what can we do to really focus on the staffing issue? So with our current vacancy list, a few of the things that I would just like to point out is some of the positions that we've really kind of have focused on and where we're at with those positions. So on this vacancy list, one of the areas that we still need to focus on is our paraprofessionals and the special needs. However, with this vacancy list, we have about 12 openings. And overall, we have almost 400 employees that serve in that role. And so having 12 openings and that large of a position with that many people is a really good place. And we can still improve there, but it's a really good place. The other kind of area that I want to point out is in our certified realm. This morning, and this is it can change day to day, which is how staffing is. So this morning we had 1 classroom teacher position open. Now we have 2, but I'll provide some context to that. But that's still a really good place to be. I'm also going to show you a vacancy list that we had from 2 years ago. That was the same time frame, so end of August. And if you look at this, it's 2 pages. And like I said, we had several that were 3 pages. But if you look at this, 1 whole page is hourly classified positions. And when I counted up how many of our paraprofessional special needs positions we had open at this time, there was 24. And so a big decrease just from 2 years ago, same time frame. The other area that really stood out to me is on our certified side, we had 8 classroom teacher positions open at the same time. And so definitely what we have right now is we're sitting in a good spot. So some just areas to highlight, and this is the one that just makes me so excited. So of our custodians in the district, our custodial position, we're 100% staffed. And I can't tell you the last time we were 100% staffed with our custodians. Now we're still hiring substitute custodians, because we want to make sure we have a healthy pipeline, but to have every position filled is a huge game changer. When we don't have positions filled, we're having to pull from other sites, and sometimes classrooms will go without being vacuumed or without trash being taken out, and it impacts the teachers, it impacts the kids. So having 100% staffed there is a huge deal. This next one, has been a long time coming, and I can't even believe that we're there, but we are 100% staffed in our bus driver positions. This time a year ago, we had 15 open bus drivers. Now, this is incredible because there's a nationwide bus driver shortage. Our neighboring districts are all struggling hiring bus drivers. They're still experiencing a significant shortage. So the fact that we're 100% staffed in that position is a huge testament to the great work that Jerry Brown is doing. But it's also a huge testament to the work that you have done as a board with some of the different incentives that we have brought forward and some of the different investments in salaries and those pieces. It's a great accomplishment. We're so excited about that. The next kind of area of note is our HVAC certified techs. So this is a highly competitive position. Individuals that have the certification to be able to work on HVACs, fix them, do the maintenance, the repairs, all of those pieces, they out in the industry make $60, $70, $80 an hour. And so to be able to attract quality HVAC certified techs it's a challenge. And this time last year, we had 2 HVAC techs throughout the entire district to service every single HVAC unit that we have. So the reality is there's no way that was possible. So our HVAC techs were really kind of focusing on those catastrophic issues when a system would go down, repairing that system, but the maintenance work, there was just no way they could get to that. So we were contracting out our maintenance work, and that cost the district between $90 an hour up to $130 an hour. This position is 100% filled. So 1 year later, we have 6 certified HVAC techs, and we're able to do all of that maintenance in-house now, which is an incredible feat. Just some other areas, we have 1 open bus monitor position, which is a huge accomplishment in itself because we've had that position probably posted for years and years and years, and probably never thought we were going to be this close to being 100% staffed. As I said, we have 2 open classroom teacher positions, and that's a really good place to be as well when you consider we have 840 teachers in Vail. So out of 840 positions, we have 2 open positions right now. And that's going to happen. When the school year starts, there's always transition. Sometimes there's medical issues that arise that will require someone to need to be released from their contract, or a spouse is transferred out of state. There's always things that happen. And so again, this, changes day to day, but we're sitting in a really good spot. And then the other area that I, alluded to earlier is that significant decrease in our special education paraprofessionals, and continuing to see a downward trend and vacancies for that position. So good things happening there. And this is another area I'm just so excited about because this has been a huge focus of ours. It has a significant impact on our school sites, on our students. And the other reality is we're in a nationwide substitute shortage. And so we have struggled to cover our classrooms that need substitutes on a daily basis with a certified sub. We've struggled with that for the last several years. And so our fill rate, so of all of the absences that were entered that needed to have a substitute in 22-23, we were only able to provide a substitute 73% of the time, which is definitely not where we want to be. Now we were able to come up with solutions for those classes that we didn't have substitutes in. We were able to, we have certified staff that will cover. We've done some creative things with hourly staff that are also help to support that. But that's not where we want it to be. Historically, our fill rate has been in the low 70s as well. I mean, when you look back years, that's about where we've been. As of right now, our fill rate's 95%, which is, again, just so exciting. And we know it's early. It's not perfect. I mean, our goal is to be at 100%. That is our goal. But we've already had 1,400 absences that have required a substitute. And we've had some high absentee days with new teacher induction and some other PD pieces. And we're at a 95% fill rate. So I'm really curious to see how that will continue over time. But so far the trend is really, really positive. So just some of the things that we've done intentionally to really support the recruitment side, to support our substitute fill rate. For both of these areas, Vail's culture and reputation is the #1 reason. When we're hiring and meeting with new hires,
When we're talking with substitutes, we hear this over and over and over again. We want to work in Vail. What we hear from substitutes is, the lesson plans are thorough and students are well behaved. There's good classroom management, and that attracts people here. When we're talking about hiring, we hear things like, we want to be part of a successful school district that's doing good things for schools. We hear that this is a really great place to work. And so that word of mouth, when it comes to our culture and reputation, is probably the greatest recruitment tool that we have. On the recruitment side, we've done, as you know, a lot of job fairs the last couple of years, and we've amped up those job fairs. Not just in-house job fairs, because we've been very intentional about those job fairs, doing specialized job fairs for positions. We've done job fairs for specifically bus drivers, custodial staff, maintenance staff. But then also we've attended, I think last year we attended 7 outside job fairs. We were able to collect information on candidates and get that out to our principals and our hiring supervisors. I think one of the areas that is paramount to the change and the increase to what we've seen with the percentage of those filled positions is the focus that we've had on compensation, thanks to your great work. I was pulling some numbers for Mr. Carney last week, and we were looking at teacher average base pay and pulled back many, many years of data. And what we found from FY18 to FY24, our teacher average base pay has increased by 37%. Now we knew that there was going to be, increases throughout the 20% by 2020 initiative. We received additional funding for that. But beyond that, we've also were able to increase our teacher average base pay by 17%. That's huge. And it speaks to why we have few openings. I mean, their compensation matters. It's not obviously the only thing, but it matters. So thank you for your support and intentional effort with salaries. It's made a difference. One of the other areas where we're really focusing is on communicating the strength of our benefits package. As you know, we have an incredible benefits package in Vail, and we haven't always done a great job advertising that and using it as a recruitment tool. But we really do have one of the best benefit packages out there. We're the only district that has an employee-only free HDHP plan and a PPO plan. Only district in Southern Arizona that has that. We had a large meeting with our ASBATE partners yesterday, and ASBATE shared with us that we're one of the few districts that provides a district contribution for the independent tiers of the various plans that we have. Most districts will focus all of their kind of district contribution on the employee only tier and very little, if any, on the dependent tiers. We don't do that here. And so ASBATE made a point to acknowledge us for that. And that was something that I didn't realize. So continuing to really speak to the healthy compensation or the healthy benefits package that we have. And then some of the other things, the incentives that we have put in place for the hard to fill positions. I think of the transportation incentive program that we put in place last year. It was about this time last year, we were having those conversations to really recognize some things that we can do to, one, attract employees for our transportation department and then retain them. And clearly that's working with 100% of our bus driver positions filled and almost all of our monitors. Another area that we've really been focusing on is we have an employee referral program because word of mouth is powerful. So if we have a staff member that refers a candidate to Vail and that candidate gets hired, employees can earn up to $1,500 for that referral. So really advertising that. We've had that in place for many years, but we haven't really advertised it. So we're really being intentional with that advertising it. And then some of the other areas that I think have made an impact is our positions that have high turnover. Our sped paras is one of those areas. is focusing on what can we do to prevent that turnover? What are some things that we can do to prevent and support employees that are in those positions? And so Michelle Wood has worked really hard to provide PD at a lot of our sites, an hour a week, just on things that will help our sped pairs become more proficient in their job, feel valued in what they're doing, provide the skills that they need. So that's something that we've implemented. On the sub side, of course, our culture reputation. One of the big changes that we had is we transitioned substitute management systems this year. So for years and years, I want to say at least 12 years, maybe more, we used a system called ASOP or Frontline. And the system worked for us back then. It did what we needed it to do, but the system had not really been updated to kind of keep up with, kind of research and industry research and how you get subs to take absences. And so we've been looking for a new system that better meets our needs. And the system that we stumbled upon was Red Rover, and it's made a significant impact. So for example, when a substitute, when we had an absence and we needed a substitute to fill that absence with ASOP, we would have these robocalls that would go out. Now, if you're a substitute teacher and you're, out to eat with your family and you're sitting at dinner and you get this robocall, they're going to deny it, right? It's just, the number. I'll get to that later. Then what would require the substitute to do is to go to a computer, because there wasn't a mobile version of this, go to a computer, log into ASOP, find what positions, were open, what absences, and then click to accept those absences. There wasn't any information in the robocall. If the sub did take the call, it didn't say what school, what position, nothing. And so it was a very passive system. It required a lot on the substitute's part to be able to accept an assignment. Red Rover sends out text. They don't use robocalls. They send out text. And the text has the school and the position of the absence that needs to be filled. All of the substitute teacher has to do is reply with a yes or a thumbs up emoji, and it's filled. That's it. They don't have to log in. They don't have to do any extra steps. They don't have to listen to a voicemail. It's just boom, 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 and it's quick. So we have seen that that's been a huge factor in increasing our fill rate. The other thing that we've started to do is we provide lunch incentives for our substitute teachers. For our substitute teachers that take those morning of absences, when someone, submits an absence first thing in the morning because they're not feeling well or whatever that may be, what we do in those circumstances, because those tend to be the hardest to fill, is we let our substitutes know if you take a morning of or a last minute absence, we're going to buy lunch for you, and we provide lunch for them. All of our sites also have lunch tickets that they have a certain number each quarter that they can just hand out to subs that just show their appreciation, because all of our districts across Southern Arizona basically pay the same for a daily rate or a half day rate. So we have to do things kind of, how can we connect with our substitutes so they accept positions in Vail, because they can accept them in other places as well. We all pay the same. So having that kind of connection, making them feel valued, letting them know we appreciate them is important. And then we've also provided 2 days of professional development, usually one in the fall and one in the spring, where we bring our subs in, we pay them for the day, we feed them lunch. Megan Nolan does her, amazing PD where, we'll give, training on classroom management, on student engagement, de-escalation, all of those different things. So our subs feel valued that way. So we're taking the time to invest in them. And then just really our substitute coordinators and some targeted communication that they're doing to also build those relationships. And then also making, those individual calls when we have absences that need to be filled. And, because they have worked hard on these relationships, substitutes will answer those phones and they'll have those conversations, and we're able to hook them that way too. So really good news. We're not perfect by any means. We want to see no vacancies. We want to see 100% fill rate. But just from what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, we're definitely heading in the right direction. Just really excited to see that continue to get better.
Thank you, Mrs. Dabney. Just wanted, as you said, just wanted to provide context to also the hard work that this board has done to create incentives and to create staff retention. And I just can't sell or oversell the importance of what fully staffed schools and departments mean to efficiency and quality of services to our students that we serve as families. It's just huge. So thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
Great job.
Mr. King.
Thank you for all that information. One of the things, you said something about an increase of 37%. I didn't catch the time frame on that. Was that?
So thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board, Mr. King. Yes, so that was from FY18 through FY24. And that's average teacher pay, average base pay. And base pay, especially average base pay, fluctuates. So one thing to keep in mind in Vail is if we are opening a new school, and we've opened a couple schools in that time frame, if we're bringing in a large portion of new teachers that have, maybe not as much as experience as a teacher, obviously that's been here for a while, that's going to impact the average. That will bring that average down because we're hiring a large teacher or a large number of teachers coming in kind of at the base pay. If we have a large number of teachers that are highly compensated teachers that have been in the district for a period of time and they retire, that's going to impact average base pay. So to have open schools during that time frame and still have a 37% increase is it's pretty incredible, and it's thanks to you.
Go ahead.
You also said the subfill rate, and sitting through Megan's NTI, when you said that was at 95%, I said, wonder if this, and I wrote it down. I said, wonder if this has anything to do with that migration to Red Rover. And then I look up and right there, I was like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely made an impact.
all right, thank you.
Thank you so much for all your work on this. I know your fingerprint is on all of those dials, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move on. Thank you. Our next item is our kindergarten entry assessment, also a study item. Mr. Crew.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. I'm going to have Mrs. Penn come and provide the background on this. Well, I'll just leave it at that. There's Penn.
Thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, members of the board. During our last school year, 2022-2023, there was some legislation that went into effect that required school districts to adopt and implement a kindergarten readiness assessment. And this is not an assessment that determines whether a kindergartner would enter kindergarten, but in reality, it's to assess the kindergartner's skills so that we can pick up at that appropriate instructional level. In the Vail School District, we have done this for years and years with our own internal assessments. We heard recently that there was going to be a transition actually away from this, and some new legislation was recently passed that moves the school district's responsibility from implementing a specific assessment that is state selected to having the governing board determine which assessments would be used in the school district to determine the kindergartner's level of readiness. So we have been implementing our own previously. We did go through some training to make sure our teachers were ready, but to implement this state assessment. But when we learned that that was going to be adjusted, we continued with the practice of the assessments that we have been using all along. And so what we're bringing to you for study tonight is the acknowledgement that this has gone through we're going to adopt, no, we're going to ask the governing board to make that call, and then to bring to you I'm not bringing the recommendation tonight, but when we do bring the recommendation, it would be that we would continue using a reading fluency measure, such as what we have in place, which are those required screenings from the Move On When Reading that we would use a math fluency measure such as our spring math fluency screener that has been in place, and that we would continue to use the 45-day screening tool, which is in fact still required from the state level as well.
I was chatting with Mrs. Tippett, who's not able to be here later this afternoon about this. She said, she summed it up well. She said, so it sounds like the state is now allowing us to do the things that we've known worked for all along. And I said, yes, that's a good summary.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Comments or questions? No. Mr. King, you're good? Okay, thank you. Ms. Penn, are you staying up for the next one too? Okay. We will go to the last, oh no, sorry, I had to scroll down. Apparently this is the last one. To our incentive pay adjustments. This one's an action item, Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. Mrs. Penn will provide the background, but functionally, these are items that we spoke about in study sessions with the budget, and also spoke about globally with the incentive pay packet. When we got to this point, we realized that we didn't take action on them, so we're bringing them back for that piece. So the specifics of that are Mrs. Penn.
President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board, you likely remember our conversation around the incentive pay packet, and we were looking at providing some increases for some of the district coordinators, the fine arts, the music, the PE, the theater coordinators. We were also looking at some increases for our instructional team leaders. And we were further looking at some increases for the new Junior National Honor Society, and Student Council leads. And we studied those in study session. And as Mr. Cruz said, we have not yet brought them to you for action. And that's what we're doing tonight, is bringing the content of that study session to you for action.
One other note, the amounts reflected here are also amounts that are reflected in the budget that was adopted by the board. So with that, I'll make the recommendation to the Vail School District Governing Board approve the payment increases for the incentive pay packet as presented.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion.
I'll motion.
Ms. Anderson,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Buster. Comments or questions? I do have one question. I was looking through the list, and it looks like to me these are positions that people would be asked to fill, that they wouldn't necessarily volunteer, although it could probably be a a mutual, it's saying that you're interested in somebody saying, I would like you to do that. Is that true, or are any of these, could somebody just say, jump in and do some of these positions, Mr. Cruz?
We'll go back and forth between Mrs. Penn and I. Some of them are opened and interviewed for and considered.
Okay.
So it just depends on what particular position. It depends somewhat on what is needed at that site, how many people there are at the site. But when there's multiple people, for some of them, they do an interview process for those. So I would say yes, could be a combination of all of those things. Depends on some of the context for the position and what that position represents, either as a district position or at a site. Depends on anything like that.
President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board, I would just like to point to within the incentive pay packet is an application to be filled out for the positions. And so there are times when that process has gone through. We also are careful to get principal feedback and to have principals encourage people to participate in these leadership positions. Those have historically kind of passed from school to school. Some of them the leadership has been in place for a while, but we do see movement in those positions also.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, or ESSER Fund update. It's an inform item. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. Mr. Hurley.
Yeah, pleased to let you know this is the last time we have to do this, but this is the final safe return to school plan. And just in honor of transparency in those things. We wanted to bring it to the public and show this is what out there and this is what we're doing and this is what our plan is. The only change we've made in the last 6 months is we used to meet bi-weekly with the county and now they have a once a month meeting to give us updates and those things. But this is part of our last requirements to meet the safe return to bringing our kids back to school.
And, yep. Mr. Hurley, can you remind the board when the funds will completely run out? Or what's the terminus point for the ESSER funds?
Yes. So ESSER funds are September 30th of next year. It'll be the last.
Next, end of the next fiscal year. Yeah.
We have probably used 90-something% of them already, trying to use them when they needed, but there are some left over.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I have to admit, it makes me a little twitchy to hear you say return to school, but and it feels like a lifetime ago. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Ms. Anderson.
So this is saying this guidance is through September 30th. So after September 30th, you don't have to, this is 2023, but the funds are through next year.
Mr. Cruz.
Yes, that's correct. So, and all of the things, and one other piece, the plans that we're walking and executing, there are no, I mean, all things that we've talked about and are doing and just running out the expenditures on those funds in the manner of which we've been using them for the last year and a half, 2 years, depending on when we received them. As Mr. Hurley said, most of those have been expended already. So.
I would just add, President Pratt, members of the board, Mr. Cruth, that they're independent, so it is part of the ESSER that we have to do this safe return to school fund, but it's not connected to the funding. So my belief is the understanding behind it was they wanted us to have a plan to be continuing to move back towards opening school, and they couldn't have foreseen it being this long, I guess. So this was the latest date that they had to say. But I think we've done it now for 2 years. We've had to update it every 6 months.
So you're saying we're back to school is what I'm hearing.
I believe the first time that Mr. Hurley made this presentation, we were in the Micah Mountain dining hall. Yeah, I might have memories of that.
Now we're all gonna have nightmares.
Yeah.
It's a much better meeting.
This is much easier.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Our next item, and really, I think actually towards the end, is ASBA Delegate Assembly and Action Item. Mr. Cruz?
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. This is actually an action item of the board. So you all discussed who would be the delegate assembly previously. And so this is taking action on that. So I believe the protocol here is to have a board member make this particular recommendation. And since the person isn't here, I think that'll be easy. Who's going to be the delegate?
Yes.
It isn't a nose goes.
I know, huh?
It's been thoughtful.
Yes, I know it feels a little rude to appoint somebody who isn't here. We have had the conversations ahead of time. And anyway, is there a board member who wishes to make this recommendation?
Did you want me to make it? Since I'm the alternate?
Oh,
I make a motion that Callie Tippett be the ASB delegate.
and do you want to?
Oh, and Chris King be the alternate.
I'll accept them. Do we need the date or?
Yeah, I was gonna say we want to make it the right way, so.
Oh,
Yeah, it's fine.
sorry.
No, it's fine. Maybe just say the date
Yes.
and the place.
To the assembly on September 9th, 2020.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second, because it was a motion?
I will second.
Okay. Comments or questions? I guess this is what happens when you don't show up to a meeting, is you get appointed to something like this. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. We can't hear Callie. So we will, the motion carries. Thank you. Now, our really last agenda item is adjournment. I'll accept a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:30.
I'll motion.
Ms.
Second.
Anderson, Mr. King, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.